Okay, we'll make a start. There'll probably be one or two people more joining as we go along. But yeah, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, which is going to showcase the Microsoft tool Power BI. My name is Robin Clough, and I'm the Managing Director of DataConsulting. Fortunately for you lot, I'm not going to be delivering the session today. That will be my esteemed colleague, Chris, who will shortly introduce himself. And he's going to take you through the main session, which is expected to last about sort of 40 minutes. To allow a smooth session, we've actually turned everyone onto mute and turned off cameras and chat. But there is a Q&A facility, so please do put any sort of questions you might have in there, and we'll try and sort of address those questions either as we go along or maybe towards the end. We'll just see how many sort of questions we get. And yeah, we might just turn the chat on as well towards the end, just so people can ask any comments or feedback or any sort of final questions. So yeah, just a little bit about us. I won't go on too long. Yeah, we're DataConsulting, been around for over sort of 15 years. And I guess what we do really is help people be more successful with data analytics, particularly at the moment in areas such as Power BI. So when we decided about what session to do, I think we'd seen that recently a lot of people were kind of discovering Power BI. Everybody's probably quite familiar with Excel, but most people probably have got access as well to Power BI, and it's a very sort of powerful tool to access. So I'll pause there and yeah, just hand over to my colleague Chris.
Cheers, Robin. Good morning, everyone. Like Robin said, my name's Chris, and I've been at DataConsulting for just short of a year now. And in that time, I've mainly sort of been using and learning Power BI. So I guess not too long ago, I was probably in a similar position to some of you guys, where I kind of knew what Power BI was, but I didn't really have too much exposure to actually using it. So that's kind of the objective of the webinar today. I'm going to give you a bit of a demo on Power BI and show you a sample dashboard, so you can get a bit of an idea of what you can achieve. And I'm also going to give you a bit of a walkthrough, kind of step by step, to creating some of these key features that you'll see on the sample dashboard. Now, I don't expect you to remember everything, but hopefully it will be sort of a helpful exercise to get you familiar with Power BI. And at the end, I'm going to show you a few dashboards that some of us at DataConsulting have made in the past, and just to sort of give you an idea of some of the use cases it might have in your own businesses. And I'm going to do that hopefully without sharing any client secrets. So yeah, I'm going to try and take a few questions, I think, as we go along. I'll probably stop and check the Q&A, but I'll probably leave the majority of them to the end just to keep the momentum. Okay, so that brings us on to our first section. So I'm going to do a bit of an overview of some of the key features. So the first thing I want to talk about is data integration within Power BI. So this is really just to kind of show you the range of support that Power BI has in terms of importing data sources. So whilst mainly you'll commonly be using sort of Excel and CSV files, there's actually quite a lot more support. So for example, SQL servers actually allow you to import directly from the SQL server using your business, and you can put some SQL statements in there to sort of narrow down the scope of what you want to import. You also have the option to direct query, which means that instead of loading the data into Power BI, it takes it straight from your SQL server, so that anytime changes are made to the data on the SQL server, those changes would also be made within your dashboard. So yeah, it's really just the kind of range of sources that I want you to kind of get familiar with. So there's like Microsoft support, of course, a lot of Google third-party sources, Azure, and SAP systems. And actually, you're even able to import directly from the web pages. So if your web pages have a sort of quite a simple layout, maybe a table that you want to import, you can do that directly within Power BI, and then it's refreshable. So when the website is updated, your data will also be updated. So that's the data integration. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of options there. The next thing I want to go on to is Power Query. So this is really the sort of first stage in any dashboard. And you might be familiar with this because actually it's a popular feature within Excel, and it works exactly the same way in this case. So it's essentially an extract, transform, and load tool that helps you gather important data from various sources, and then you're able to clean and transform that data to meet the requirements of what you want to put into your model, and then load it into your model, all within Power Query. And of course, when you're creating dashboards, it's really important to have a strong sort of structure within your data. So this step kind of allows you to achieve that quite easily. And so you've got all these features available to you, sort of splitting text and extracting text from various columns, appending and merging tables, adding sort of conditional custom columns on as well. So just sort of general data transformation. So that's Power Query. The next thing is the DAX language. So actually Power BI has its own built-in sort of language that allows you to take insight from your data that isn't directly available within the raw data itself, or sort of using transformations within Power Query. And so it allows you to do sort of a lot of basic aggregations, like sort of counts and sums and stuff like that, as well as write sort of a bit more complicated statements to maybe adjust filter context, or a lot of time intelligence functions, running totals and stuff like that. So that's the DAX language, and we're going to actually come on to that a bit more later and write a couple of DAX queries in the demo. So the next one is a range of visualization options. So of course, Power BI is fundamentally a visualization tool. So you would expect quite a range of visualization options, and that is definitely the case. So these are the sort of built-in visualization options, and all they sort of require is a drag and drop and sort of your data into the visuals to populate them. So they're quite simple to use. But actually, if this range of options isn't enough, we have custom visuals. So you can import custom visuals pretty easily within Power BI. It's pretty much just a click of a button to sort of download it and run it. So some that I've used quite frequently are the text filter. So this is a sort of filter visual that allows the user to sort of type in text and filter maybe a table based on that. So like I said, it's just as simple as pressing add, and you can use that sort of straight away. Most of them are free. I think there are a few sort of third-party ones that might have some like in-app kind of purchases, but yeah, like I said, the majority of them are sort of free to use and ready to go. And on top of that, if you can't find what you're looking for in the custom visuals, there's also both R and Python visuals. So actually, if you've ever used Python before, you'll know there's quite a lot of flexibility in what you can do, of course. So that kind of applies to visuals as well. You can write Python script to customize pretty much unlimited customization for your visuals. So that's another option to take it a bit further. And finally, there's some sort of community-based visual building tools. This one's called Deneb. So it kind of works the same way as Python visuals, but it kind of uses its own language called the Vega language instead of Python. And of course, there's a lot of community support when it comes to sort of learning how to build visuals in this way. And it does allow quite a lot of extra customization options that aren't available through the standard Power BI sort of package. And of course, these community things have sort of templates that you can use, which wouldn't require much sort of coding. So that's another option for visualizations. Okay, so the next one is publishing and sharing. So when it comes to sort of finishing up your dashboard and sharing your work with the team, there's a few ways that the Power BI allows you to sort of achieve this. The first one is just sharing the Power BI project file directly, sort of how you would share an Excel workbook. And this allows sort of the user who receives it to view all the data, and they don't need the raw data sort of stored on their computer because it's all shared within the Power BI file. The only issue with this is if they need to refresh the report, they will then need to have access to the raw data. And they'll be able to view it just like you can see it here. So the next option is to share it via a link, so just a simple web URL. And this can allow users to interact with the dashboard without having a Power BI license whatsoever, which can be quite useful for sort of publicly available dashboards. The issue with this is a bit of a security sort of issue where if they can access the URL, they can also access the underlying data. So this often isn't the best option. And the final way is to publish via the Power BI service, where users within your organization can sort of be selected as to who can access the dashboard. So it's a bit more secure. And it's also done via a sort of web URL, but within the Power BI service itself. So I can actually show you this dashboard in the Power BI service. So it looks very similar, of course. There's only 2 pages here, but you actually get metrics as well to see who's been accessing which pages of your dashboard, and actually all the way down to which visuals. So you can figure out sort of what's being used and actually what might need to be improved or what you might need to get some feedback on. So that's quite a useful feature as well. So back to the list, we've got row and object level security. So row and object level security is a kind of security feature within Power BI. So actually it allows you to set up roles to sort of give permissions to certain users to access certain rows within the same data table. So this might be useful, say, if different departments, you want to deploy the same dashboard to all the departments, but they have different permissions as to which data they can access. So this allows you to deploy the same sort of dashboard to different departments, but actually choose which rows in the database they'll be able to see. So that's row level security, and object level security works in a similar way, just with permissions for sort of entire tables rather than just rows in the same table. So that's some of the key features within Power BI. So the next thing we're going to do is sort of look at a demo dashboard and just go through it and just get a feel for how some of these features are actually used. Before that, I'm just going to pause and check the Q&A in case there's anything there. Okay. Okay, so there's no questions at the moment, so feel free to pop any questions in as we go along. So I'm going to move on to the dashboard demo. Okay, so this is the dashboard that we're going to be taking a look at, and it's made with sample data from a data challenge that some of us did a while ago. It's actually sales data from a sort of imaginary pizza restaurant. So for a bit of context, this restaurant wanted some insight into sort of when they're busiest, which of their pizzas are selling the best, and sort of how they're using the seating capacity in their restaurant. And this is a multi-page dashboard. So often the first page sort of contains a high-level summary with the sort of overall totals and aggregations, and a scope, a date scope, and this is sort of broken down across the rest of the report. So the first thing we're going to look at actually is the date scope, and you'll notice that we have the flexibility to sort of change these filters, and it changes any of the visuals that we want it to, and any of the pages across the report. So we can actually use the date filter across the entire report, and as you'll see, all the figures are changing. Okay, so we're going to go through to the second page, and we're going to use this custom button here. So that's another interesting feature that Power BI allows you to do, is import images or shapes and assign actions to them. So we can use it for page navigation. We can use them as sort of bookmarks or even web URL links. So that's quite a useful feature to sort of add a bit of aesthetics to your dashboards. So this sort of page just gives a bit of an overview of the busyness of the restaurant. So we've got some visuals about the different times, and actually if we click on any of those, it will cross filter the rest of the visuals because of the way things are set up. So it's quite a dynamic dashboard in that sense, and that's one of the good things that Power BI allows you to do. And as I hover over some of these, you'll realize that actually now we can see the values associated with them. Now we can display the values directly on the dashboard itself, but I think a bit of good practice is to sort of keep things quite clean and minimalistic. So you can actually make use of the tooltip instead to display the key information that you want. Often sort of less is more when it comes to creating dashboards. So now we've seen this sort of tooltip showing you the values. We can go back to the first page, and you'll notice something different when I hover over this this view. So you'll notice that there's a sort of much bigger tooltip. So this is actually a custom tooltip, which is another option that you have. You can create your own, just like you would create a page within your dashboard, and they're dynamic so that whatever you would hover over, it will display that. So it just, again, allows you to cram a little bit more information in without sort of overcrowding your dashboard. So we're going to carry on to the third page. And again, this is sort of just a top 3 and bottom 3 pizzas and the different categories of pizza. So again, once we click on any of these, it will cross filter to change our top 3 and bottom 3, which is quite a good dynamic option that we've got there. And also another thing we're able to do is drill through. So if we click on for example, the classic deluxe pizza, we can drill through to another page, which then becomes entirely filtered to that specific item that we clicked on. So here you can see this is all the orders for just that pizza. And this is just sort of a table of the raw data, which allows the user to see the raw data without having to go back to maybe an Excel spreadsheet to sort of cross-reference. So it's good to have it all in one place. So that's the drill through. And just going to the 4th page. So this is just another nice visual to show the way the seating capacity's been used, just to sort of show you another type of visual. And actually we can access the drill through page as well without doing any sort of filtering. So this now allows you to see all of the sort of data that's gone into the dashboard. Again, so you don't have to cross-reference with any other sort of software. So that's a good feature. Okay, so if you're working in the Power BI sort of file, there's 2 more things that you're going to be able to access, and that's the data view and the sort of relationships view. So this is the data view, and it's a very useful way to sort of view the underlying data whilst you're producing a dashboard. And any filtering done here actually doesn't affect the dashboard itself, which makes it pretty good for sort of verification of your visuals, or just checking that all your data is sort of correct, the data that's going into the dashboard. So that's quite useful, and it actually helps when sort of trying to create calculated columns and write DAX expressions, as you get a more sort of visual representation of what's happening. And the final thing is the data model. So the data model is where you define all the relationships. So these are all the tables behind the dashboard, and this is sort of where you define the links to connect them on the matching fields between each table. So in order to allow the report to do all that cross filtering that we saw and allow a lot more information to be sort of pulled through and make it more dynamic, this section is really necessary to sort of connect all the tables up. And it also provides a good visual representation of how it's all sort of all put together. And that's pretty useful when you're trying to create filters, because essentially when you filter through one table, the filter context will flow downwards to your sort of fact table, which we'll talk about a little bit when we produce some of the visuals as well. So back to the first page, we're just going to take another look at this page, because we're going to start to create a couple of these sort of aggregations and visuals ourselves in the next section, which is the demo. So again, before we move on to that, I'm just going to check Q&A and have a sip of water. Okay, so like I said, the next section is a bit of a demo. So we're going to go through sort of step by step how to create a bit of a dashboard yourselves, because I think this is sort of the best way to get familiar with Power BI, is to sort of understand the start to finish process, I guess, of creating a dashboard. So I'm going to walk you through that now. And like I mentioned earlier, the first sort of step is the Power Query element. So we're going to open Power Query using the transform data. And we're going to start to bring in some sort of CSV files to work with. So we're going to have our order details. And it's important at this stage to sort of check some things. So firstly, you're going to want to remove sort of any errors, or just do general cleaning of the data. So here we don't actually have any errors, but we do need to check the data types. So actually this is an ID number, and it's being automatically recognized as a sort of an integer raw number, but because it's an ID number, we don't really want them to be added up in the way that a regular number would be. So we're going to change those to text values. And the same goes for the order ID. Pizza ID should be a text and quantity should be a number. Okay, so we're going to bring through 2 more files. We're going to bring through pizzas. So everything looks good here. The data types are correct, and there aren't any errors. And finally, we're going to bring through orders. Yeah, we're going to bring through orders. And again, so the order ID should be text. And the date and time are correct. So there is something to note here actually about the structure of the data. So we've seen there's quite a few ID numbers in these 3 quite small tables. So the reason the data is sort of structured like this is to reduce repetition of data and sort of data redundancy. For example, so there's many rows sort of in the same order. So for order 2, and rather than putting the date and time, the same date and time for every single one of those rows, actually we could use this order details ID to look up the order ID, sorry, to look up that date and time from just a single row. So if there's a single row for order number 2, and using the ID number, we can look up that value rather than repeating it within our data. So actually, we're going to call this a lookup table for that very reason. So we're going to rename that order lookup. And the same goes for the pizza. Instead of writing the price for every single time there's a specific type of pizza, we can just use this code to look it up from a separate table where it's only written once. So we'll call that the pizza lookup. Okay, so that's all we're going to do in Power Query. So we're going to close and apply those changes, and it should pull through our tables. And just to check that, we go to our data view and have a look. So yeah, that looks good to me. Okay, so we've got our data tables loaded in. The next step is to set up the relationships. So we're going to go to our data model, and it will create sort of relationships by default, but actually we're going to delete those and do them ourselves, just to make sure that they're correct. So I'll bring my tables over here. So it's good practice to keep your sort of lookup tables at the top, because it's almost the way I mentioned that sort of filter context almost flows down into the main table. So that's sort of why we keep the lookup tables at the top, just so you can sort of visualize that a bit better. So we're going to start to connect them. So order ID with order ID, and it will create this relationship, and there's a little star and a little 1. So that means it's a one-to-many relationship, which is sort of just agrees with sort of what I just said, where you have many values in your main table and just a single row in your lookup table that you want to get that information from. So that's how you know it's sort of going to work. And I'll do the same for pizza ID and the date table as well. So now any filters on dates will go all the way through down to filter out this original table as well, which is what we want for the sort of dynamic effect. So now we've done that, we're going to create some of the sort of visuals that we saw over on the main dashboard. So we're going to start with the total orders. So the way we're going to calculate total orders is a sort of a count of all the unique order IDs, because that will give us the value of total orders. So we're going to use DAX for this. So we're going to start to create a sort of DAX measure, and we're going to call it total orders. And to get a unique count, there's actually a DAX function called distinct count. And when you bring through a function, it then tells you what the function does. So counts the number of distinct values in a column, which is what we want, and it tells you what's required to go into the function. So here we have column name, which is what we want. So we're going to get the order ID as the column name. So we'll create our measure, and then we're going to bring through a card visual just to visualize that measure. And then we can just click on it. And we can do a bit of formatting with that. So we'll put a comma in, and we will change the way it's sort of formatted. So we've got a value for the total orders. The next thing we're going to look at is the gross sales. So the way we're going to get the gross sales, if we go through to our data model, is we're going to multiply the quantity by the price. So you'll notice those are in different tables. But because of this relationship, we can access the price value to do that aggregation. So we're going to create another measure, and we're going to call it gross sales. And we're going to use a function called SUMX. So like it says here, it returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in a table, and it asks for that table. So that table is the order details table. And the expression is we want to do the quantity, and we want to times that by the price. Now, when I type in price, you'll notice that a sort of column doesn't show up initially, and this is because it's in a separate table. So we're going to use a function called related to get it from that table. So it returns a related value from another table. So we're going to get that price column. So now it comes up, so we can use it. Close the brackets. Create our measure, and to use that measure, we'll just get a card, and we'll click on our gross sales. So there you go. And we're just going to do a bit of formatting on that as well. We'll make it into a currency, with dollars, or we can put pounds. So there you go. So the next thing we're going to look at, if you remember from our pizza dashboard, is the date scope. So we want to be able to change all these values based on the date, and also view the dates that it's been selected. So we'll get a card, and we're going to bring from our date table the date. So by default, it's going to choose the earliest date, which is good because we actually do want the earliest date. And I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller so we can fit them on the page. But we also want we want to know the latest date that it's selecting. So actually we can copy that, and Power BI actually gives you the option to select the way that your data is aggregated. So if this was a number value, we'd have a few options like sum and average and a count and a distinct count. And for a date, we actually have earliest and we have latest, and we also have some counts. So we've got latest. So we need to know that, which is good. And now we're going to sort of have the option to filter it, which might be a lot simpler than you might think. Because we've set up all those relationships in the background, we can just bring a slicer and we can select month in calendar. And now we've got a date slicer. So if I press on any of those, as you can see, for May, it selects just the dates within May and the values associated. And we can set this up to sort of allow multiple selection and stuff like that. So just a couple more visuals just to do maybe some graphs. So we can bring the sort of overview of the monthly sales. So we'll take our month in calendar, and we'll also take our measure of gross sales. And as you can see, because we've filtered just to 1 month, we've now got this just a single dot instead of a chart. So if we unselect that, we'll get our chart. But we don't want that to happen again. So what we can do actually is press on this filter, and we can edit the interactions that this filter has with our other visuals. And then we can unselect this graph so that now when we change the filter, this graph will stay the same. Just like that. And just to bring through maybe one more visual, we'll do something with the sizes of the pizzas. So a donut chart, and we'll just look at the total orders by size. So there you go. So just like that, it's pretty easy to sort of get some basic visuals together if everything's been set up in the appropriate way. So that's pretty important. But yeah, like I've shown you some sort of basic. Of course, these are quite basic aggregations and filters, but it just sort of shows you that really you can produce some visuals quite easily. And you can sort of move on to more complicated ones just with a bit of learning. So that's sort of all I wanted to show you with the demo, the dashboard demo. So the next thing, actually, I will check the Q&A just at the end of this section.
Yeah, Chris, you need to click on the published tab in the Q&A. There was a question in there, but I have put an answer.
Okay.
I've put an answer to it, but yeah, I think I was doing the same thing as you. I was not clicking on the right tab, but yeah, we've got a question in there.
Okay. We're managing.
Like I said, I put an answer in there, so hopefully that'll suffice. By all means, Keith, please say if you question you're not quite happy with the response, but yeah, probably okay to carry on.
Okay.
I noticed Matt's joined as well, so he'll be able to have a look at the question as well while you're cracking on.
Yeah. Okay, so we just have sort of one small section left, and that's just to show you some sort of examples of some dashboards that we've done as a team in the past, just to show you what you can achieve and sort of how many options there are with dashboarding. So I'll just show you those. Okay, so this is a productivity dashboard that we use internally to track the hours that we spend on sort of various projects. So this provides quite a good summary for Robin, and this is a dynamic sort of dashboard, so all of this is interactable. So yeah, like I said, this provides a bit of a summary for Robin of how things are sort of going, and again, this is another page, so breakdown by year, so you've got your year filter and a various breakdown of all the months, and if you click on any of those, of course, it will filter out all the other visuals. So that's one option that you could sort of use things for. The next one is for a sort of sports team. So this is a sample dashboard summarizing the ticket sales and revenue sort of for this sports team. And this was targeted at upper management. So actually there's a bit less detail and it sort of focuses more on the key figures that they would want to know. And this is just a breakdown page of that. This is a sample that was done to summarize quite a large amount of sort of audit tests for a utilities company. So this is sort of a summary page, and each of these links will take you to the sort of results of the tests. So any of these links, and the breakdown of each sort of test will look something like this. So even if you've got quite a lot of information, you can still sort of make it fit into a single dashboard. And this is more of an infographic style dashboard that was done for a data challenge. So it focuses a bit less on interactivity because this was sort of designed to be exported as a PDF rather than used on a computer or online or anything like that. So you can actually use Power BI just to create just nice looking reports, which is quite a good feature. And this is another one that sort of one of us did for another data challenge, and this one was to do with the World Cup. So yeah, so Power BI doesn't always have to be used for dynamic reports. You can just produce nice looking sort of static reports to be printed out or to be a big poster. So that's actually all I wanted to show you in terms of some examples, but hopefully you get a sort of feel for what you can do now. And if you hadn't seen anyone using Power BI before, then hopefully now you have a bit more of an idea of how to get started. So yeah, we've looked at quite a few different dashboards, and it just kind of goes to show you that wherever there's data, you can present it within Power BI. But it's not just a tool for the presenting sort of stage. You can also do all your cleaning and organizing of your data within it. And you don't have to settle for a dull design. You can use the freedom to sort of create some more engaging options for your team and for your management to be using. So yeah, I hope this was useful. Thank you for following along, and I guess now's a good time to sort of go back to the Q&A and answer a few questions. So yeah, thank you.
I think there might be one in there, Chris. Just have a quick look.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The question about can you automatically refresh dashboards?
Yeah, so actually you do have this option in Power BI. So because of the integration with Microsoft, there's quite a lot of support for setting up sort of automated processes. So some of you might be familiar with Power Automate, which is just another Microsoft service which allows you to sort of automate processes, like it says in the name. So yeah, this sort of allows you to set up dashboards to refresh with quite a range of triggers, and you can also get it to set up sort of to send emails to people once that's complete. And there's also capability to refresh within Power BI itself. So you can schedule refreshes on specific days or specific times. So yeah, you can definitely do that.
Yeah, we had a question from Stacey asking if we've got time at the end, could we please go through some other basic DAX queries? So
yeah, I don't see why not. We can go back to the dashboard in a second.
Yeah,
I'll answer the other two. Oh, there's just one. That's been answered. Yeah, okay. Maybe we should read this one out so everyone sort of knows what happened. So the question was, when managing roles and object security, I believe this needs to be done within the Power BI file while using the Power BI desktop. Then when you import the Power BI file to Power BI service, do you import those privileges you set up too? Yeah, actually not sure about that one. So Robin's put an answer. What was the verdict, Robin?
Yeah, I managed to, obviously I'm not an expert, but I just did a bit of sort of digging around and found a response. But
okay, so yeah, so the row and object security that I mentioned, that does get published along with the report.
Yeah.
So I think most of the stuff you do within the Power BI file will be uploaded as well and maintained.
I'm just going to unmute Matt as well, who's offered to kindly help you out with some of the questions, Chris. I just need to unmute him. Found it.
Hello, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. So just on that row and object security, yeah, as Chris has already mentioned and as Robin has already mentioned, this is exclusively to be set in Power BI desktop, but you can test it from Power BI service as well. So those roles you set up have to be set up through Power BI desktop, but you can kind of put yourself in a given role from Power BI service as well, if I remember correctly. So yeah, as I've said, you can test it through Power BI service, but you can only build and change it from Power BI desktop.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks, Matt. Hopefully, Keith, that kind of answers your question. By all means, get in touch if you want to have a further discussion on that. And I think then, yeah, it's just a request from Stacey to go through some other basic DAX queries. Is that all right, Chris? We've got a little bit of time left.
Yeah. I'm sure we can do. We'll just have to take a look at the sort of the underlying model to figure out what insight we want to get. So maybe we can do a different types of pizza. Yeah. So we can do basic we can do a basic count. So we'll create a new measure. Oh, so we've got a count of the total orders. So we can do a distinct count of the types of pizzas as well. So using that, or even just a regular count. So we can just count the pizzas based on the pizza ID. So we'll create that measure. So that's just using a simple count. So that doesn't do what distinct count does. That just counts every sort of row in the table rather than just the unique ones. Just trying to think what else we can get out of this. There's not too much sort of data here, so yeah, I guess Matt, if you have any other very frequently used functions.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if maybe some basic KPIs here would work. Something like rolling average, 7-day rolling average of orders. If you feel like you could do that in sort of short amount of time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think what I suggest, because I know Stacey asked for some DAX queries. I guess it's just caught us out a little bit, and maybe we'll just reach out to you, Stacey, and see if there's any sort of particular queries that you want us to do, and we can probably just be a bit more prepared. I guess. Yeah. So yeah, apologies for that, Stacey, but yeah, if we can, we'll maybe get in touch with you and just see what particular sort of queries you'd like to go through. But just conscious of time, and I just want to thank Chris for the presentation. I don't know if we can unmute the chat so people can just sort of say goodbye, thanks, or whatever. That would be nice. But yeah, it's you know, as Chris said at the beginning, he's still relatively new to this, and it's very brave of him really to come on a session like this and present what he's done. But it just shows that, you know, a lot of things are sort of possible with Power BI, and after such a relatively sort of short time using the tool as well. But I'll just quickly check. Yeah, Stacey says it's useful. So yeah, the chat is now on, so feel free to drop a comment in, and then yeah, feel free to leave and go and hopefully enjoy the rest of Friday and have a good weekend. Thanks everyone.